Hello and welcome to another Zend video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Simplecloud, which is part of Zend Framework 1.11. There are three primary parts of Simplecloud that you may be aware of. You have a document database, you have a message queue, and you have file storage. Now what these are intended to do are provide abstraction layers so you can call into various cloud vendors the services that they provide for either a document database, message queue, or file storage. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take a specific look at the message queue features in the Zend Framework. The message queue that we're going to be looking at is Amazon SQS, though in theory this will work with any cloud vendor that has an adapter set up to run in Zend Framework. What a message queue is, though, a lot of PHP developers might not necessarily be familiar with a message queue. And what a message queue is, it's just basically there to provide persistent storage of temporary data. Now, what a lot of us are used to doing is building, something kind of a database, a temporary table where stuff is stored, which you can do. But that's not really what a database was intended to do. A database is intended to store data, to manage data. It's not really meant to be there as a temporary storage mechanism. And so a message queue is something that you can use to actually make your application more responsive from a scalability standpoint, because what the message queue does is, rather than just pounding some kind of a server that you're using for arbitrary temporary data and just kind of hitting it, what a message queue is designed to do is allow you to send data when the system has available resources for processing it. So it allows you to scale out a little bit better, because it allows you to do things asynchronously. So you don't have the same level of dependency on available CPU cycles at a given point in time, because it allows you to process things differently. You can sometimes also process things so that they will run at some time in the future. But what the message queue is really designed to do is to pass data back and forth between arbitrary systems in a manner that is highly scalable. And with cloud queuing environments, that's really what we get to. So we'll take a look at some code, but before we do that, I want to actually go through the example. The code itself is running on a CentOS virtual machine here, and what it's going to be doing is using web services to call to Amazon. So we're not actually running this on the cloud, we're just simply storing the data there and calling the SQS systems. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click on there, I'm going to run on my VM, run the individual application on my VM, and I'm going to specify my name. I'm going to choose the image that I want to resize, which would be right here. And what this is going to do, when I click upload, this is going to upload to Amazon S3, and immediately after this, it's going to be running in the job queue, and it's going to be passing that information from the job queue to the front end system using the SQS system inside of the PHP application here. And as you can see here, the data does come in asynchronously. You're not necessarily guaranteed to have a first in, first out. So now that we have our code uploaded, we're going to take a look, or our image uploaded, we're going to take a look at the code that we use in order to do that. So we can get that information from the back-end system to the front-end system. And it's actually really simple to do. So I have my task here we can take a look at. And in here, I have, I get my queue adapter, and in there I call send message. I have a name that I passed in there. Now, there's a little bit more information up here that we need to know. We have to first create the individual queue. What this does is it creates an individual queue that this individual user can then use to send information back and forth. We call create queue on there. And then when we serialize this this job so it can be run on the back-end server, that data will be included along with it. So we have our create queue. At that point, we can send data in there. And then when we actually execute on the back-end, we call our queue adapter, and we call send message on there. And this sends it to the queue name, and then gives us our individual message, which in this case is processing start, or the individual with start, or something like that, which allows us then to get information about the individual one. So we go to the end of our loop, we see with complete, or with error, and then at the very end we see process and complete included in there as well. Now the next thing we need to do is we actually get that information. So we take a look at our status.php. We don't actually get it here, but we just print out the individual images saying that we're actually waiting for it. And so then what we call a function here called getStatus. That's in a JavaScript library, and all it does is it calls getJSON on the file status.json.php, and it just iterates over all the individual messages in there. And the way we actually build that is we go into our status.json.php, and we get our adapter from our registry, and we just call queue receive messages on the name of the queue, and we receive up to 10 messages, put them into an array, and then delete the message from that individual queue, and that allows us to keep our costs down as long as we don't have too much stuff actually being stored in there. So at that point, we just echo our JSON encode, and then it'll just change the source based off of the status that's actually passed in there. And so this is really nice because it allows us to do things asynchronously. It doesn't require a write to a database, it's persistent, and it's temporary, which is really what you want to have when you're working with an individual message queue.